I think the key to this Brazil team is in midfield. In attack, you have flexibility. You have so many players who are coming into form, and that's why you're telling me a kid that's playing in South America, you're going to take over a guy who's having the start of his Premier League career of his life in Gabriel Jesus, doing it against big teams. Not a chance if you want to be successful at the World Cup. You can do that in other positions, midfield maybe, because you have a lot of the same players. But when I look at this midfield, the man from Newcastle, Bruno Guimaraes, let's get the pronunciation books
By the
out.
way,
I had to
John might
practice
correct
that.
you on that. Go on,
Yeah,
John. Correct me.
Guimaraes.
Okay,
Guimaraes.
like I said, Guimaraes. But this is a guy
back in my England days, that would have been Guimaraes or something.
Guimaraes. This is a guy that I'm so excited to see him on the world stage. I think he's a player who's young enough, who's ready enough, and he just has an X factor. He can play on both sides of the ball, and he'll give Brazil a different dimension. And having a player who can function as a deep lying playmaker, can break plays up if need be, but also his best ability is functioning as a box-to-box midfielder. When you have so many players who can just be dynamic in that front three or front two, you need an element of surprise coming out of midfield. And the best Brazilian teams of past that have been successful at the World Cup have had a midfield runner. I think of Kleberson in the last time they won a World Cup, the last time someone outside of Europe won a World Cup. Kleberson was the unsung hero, tackling defensively, but also getting forward and creating space for the likes of Ronaldinho and that talented trio of him, Rivaldo, and Ronaldo. So I think midfield's where it's at.
I'm going to say that for me, Mike, I agree. But I think when you look at Brazil, let's be real, they're going to be heavily reliant on the front three or however they choose to set up. And it's going to be the attacking players go and do their thing. You want a solid midfield. You need a solid midfield. You look at Casemiro, Fred, and Fabinho. That's all you really need. You've got three players there you can rotate who can really dominate that midfield area. And the attacking players and fullbacks can do anything they need to do. We just had a comment where someone seems to believe that, I can't remember the person's name, sorry, so forgive me. They believe that Argentina has a better defense and midfield than Brazil. I would have to completely disagree. I think for me that Brazil have the better squad because the talent there is endless. And if anything happens to any of these players get injured, like you said, there's still so many other players that we haven't mentioned. Like you said, I feel for me personally, Gabriel Barbosa is probably the best striker in Latin America. And he's not even in the squad. And you talk about Gabriel Jesus, other players that haven't made the squad, but it's just they're so stacked talent-wise. It just depends on how they're going to set up, how they're going to look to play. And you would say yes. But the weird thing is, I don't know about you guys, but I haven't really seen so much in the media or social media world about Brazil in this World Cup. There doesn't seem to be that great expectancy as we've seen in past World Cups. I think more so now, there is a lot more focus on European countries, nations, than there is in Latin American nations. Because you think about all the World Cups, when World Cups come around, it's all Brazil, Argentina. Now, a lot more time, we're talking about European nations. So that just goes to show how I feel there isn't that kind of expectancy there.
Yeah, perhaps not that kind of level of expectancy, but one thing that I would say will probably encourage people, about Brazil's chances in particular, is Neymar's form if it continues since the beginning of this season, because this is a different Neymar to the one we've been accustomed to seeing since his signing in 2017. It's always kind of been a bit, there's been a sense of frustration really in Paris that PSG haven't seen the best of Neymar, or they've only seen the best of him in short spurts. But since the beginning of this season, this is a focused Neymar. He's very obviously motivated for this season, whether that's with PSG or mainly with Brazil because he knows it's leading into the World Cup, or a bit of both because obviously it's a new lease of life for players at PSG at this moment in time under Christophe Galtier. Either way, you look at the statistics at the moment. We'll get on to Messi's start to the season later as well. But, this is a Neymar who returned to preseason training early, looked in very good shape, and has been extremely motivated and almost one-track minded on the pitch at times. Yes, there's been the odd flare-up with the likes of Mbappe, but you look at that sort of telepathic, understanding that he has with Messi, sort of back to their best from the Barca days, and it really does feel like it's, potentially going to be an exciting World Cup for both players. Like I said, we'll touch on Messi later, but Neymar, for me, this is the Neymar that PSG thought they were getting from Barca, all those years ago. And to have him potentially going into the World Cup in this kind of form is really exciting because, it's difficult to find so many positives for a World Cup that's slap bang in the middle of a season. But when you get some of the best players in the game, on their day, going into it in this kind of form, you just have to be looking forward to seeing, superstars like Neymar doing their thing. I don't know how you guys are, feeling about, whether Neymar will be able to be, a star figure for Brazil this World Cup, Mike.
I'm having flashbacks to the 2002 World Cup. A man by the name of Ronaldo, the fat one, not the skinny one.
The original.
Phenomenal. The original. So, and I'm totally just, forgive me, Ronaldo, because you are my childhood hero on the soccer field. This is a player who there were so many doubters going into that World Cup. Injury woes, just tore it up in the Italian Serie A, one of the most difficult leagues at that time, defensive leagues in particular. Goes in the World Cup and uses the World Cup as his fuel to put on a show. And what happens to Brazil? Rehabs, gets his knee correct. No one is expecting a performance that he puts in. Brazil launched straight to a World Cup, win, which is a big deal. So when I look at this, the way Neymar is playing, when I look at the fuel to his fire, I don't think it's winning the Champions League with PSG. I think this is what he's lived for. This is the way that he can just right all wrongs. And the Brazilian national team has always been an escape for him. He always finds a way, whether he's on one leg or fully fit, he always finds a way to get on the plane and play for Brazil because there's freedom from the media, freedom to express himself. And now that he has a group that I think matches his ambition, I think you'll see the best out of Neymar at a World Cup. And mind you, 2014, Brazil, I think it could have been a very different story and potentially would have been a very different story had Neymar been fit to go up against Germany, because that is a massive creative loss that they had. And the Germans they were the best team that was there in Brazil for that World Cup. But this is a different Brazil. The fact that the pressure isn't there, so much eyes are on Argentina. Internally in Brazil, the expectation is always high. The expectation is to win. And I think when you have a player like Neymar, when you have players that are really flexing their stuff all around Europe and South America, this makes this team unpredictable and scary, scary good going into the World Cup.
Yeah, I just think that for me, Neymar's form is absolutely fantastic. I think there's two things we need to look into that. I think the changes that Paris Saint-Germain made with the director of football that's coming in, the new managers played a part. I think it's kind of a no-nonsense manager approach. Yes, you are Neymar, but if you're not playing well, you're going to be on the bench. I do feel that he's got tunnel vision, like Jonathan said. He's really focused on this World Cup. And let's remember, it's a World Cup in wintertime. So that's why he's probably had to start well and trying to maintain, because now it's not a World Cup at the end of the season. It's during winter. You've probably seen the best of Neymar now, because I think all the distractions of being in Paris when he first got there kind of out of his system. As some people would say, there's a lot of models in Paris with some great wine. Everywhere you go, there's models everywhere. That could be a big distraction for Neymar, the party boy. But
that sounded like you pre-podcast, Nigel.
Yeah, no, that's not me. After dark. I think all the distractions are out of his system now, and I think he really realizes what's going on. And it's also the fact of not just what's happened at Paris Saint-Germain, but also the Brazilian national team. They've taken that burden off it that we're just about Neymar. Because you look at the other talents now, you've got Anthony that's just joined Manchester United. You've got obviously Casemiro. You've got so many players at top clubs in Europe that it's not just about Neymar. So we're definitely seeing a lot more focused Neymar, and it's more about the World Cup than anything else that I feel.